I think what I do is mostly I try to give myself grace. And I realize that I'm going to make mistakes and that it's okay. And that it doesn't have to define me, that my mistakes don't have to define me. And so if I've made a mistake, own up to it, move on. Look at it, recognize it for what it is, put it down, and just move on. It doesn't do you any good to hang on to them and to let them determine what your next step is.
Hello and welcome to Toward a Better Life, episode 154. This is your host, Kevin Pennell, and thank you as always, dear listener, for tuning in. As the days grow longer, the darkness continues to give way to light here in the Northern Hemisphere, and winter prompts us to go within toward some deeper awareness and introspection. This natural flow within the wheel of life ushers in an ultimate aim toward balance, harmony, compassion, and kindness. And this flow, once tuned in, helps us personally, culturally, spiritually, and most importantly, change. And that begins with each one of us as individuals. As I always say, and it's what I like to share on this podcast from around the world, seek the better life, and that's what we want to do, is live a life that is more in harmony with our spirit, our hearts, and our minds, like a school that teaches us to be better souls, spirits, and true human beings. And that continues the journey toward wholeness and harmony, not only for ourselves, but for the generations yet to come. Please do subscribe to the program if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and keep following for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the program by leaving your review on Apple, Spotify, whatever platform you might be using to listen to your podcasts. It only takes a minute to leave that review, and it just helps with the algorithms. Be sure to visit my website, too, where you can learn more about me and contact me to learn more about our free discovery call that we offer to help you on your journey toward a better life, along with some prior episodes, learning opportunities, and services that I offer outside the podcast, plus a few accessories to assist you on your journey. Contact me through my website or drop me an email, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. This week, I'm welcoming Terri Brown to the program. Born in Athens, Greece, as an Air Force brat, Terri came to this world with an imagination full of stories to tell, and that's what she's going to do today with us. She now calls North Carolina as her home, specifically the coast of North Carolina, and the peaceful nature of the sea that has been a great source of inspiration for creativity. Not letting 2020 get the best of her, Terri chose to go on an adventure that changed her outlook on life. She and her husband Bruce rode a tandem bicycle trip over 3,000 miles, tandem bicycle, mind you, across the United States, from Astoria, Oregon to Washington, D.C. They did so successfully, and they did it for raising money for Toys for Tots. She learned that she is stronger than she realized and is quite capable of anything that she sets her mind to. That's what this program is going to be about this week, is challenging us to seek out the best for ourselves. Terri graduated from UNC Greensboro with a multiple of degrees and majors in elementary education, psychology, minors in math and sociology. She just couldn't quite settle on one thing alone. While homeschooling her 4 children, she began writing, and that career blossomed, and focusing a little bit on, small businesses, writing articles, blog posts, website content, that sort of thing. But in 2017, after finally getting out of an emotionally abusive 14-year marriage, Terri began dabbling in fiction, a lifelong dream. Upon winning the first annual Anita Ornoff Award for Inspirational Short Stories for a piece about her grandfather, she began writing in earnest and published her debut novel in 2022, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, a historical fiction set in Ukraine. Her second novel, published in 2023, An Enemy Like Me, takes place during World War II. Her latest novel, Daughters of the Green Mountain Gap. We're going to talk a little bit about that one in this episode. And that was a generational story about the Appalachian healers who came out in 2024. They came out. It came out. The book did. In June 2024, her short story, The Youngest Lighthouse Keeper, came out in the anthology Feisty Deeds, Historical Fictions of Daring Women. Her latest book, 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure, came out in February 2025, and that's what we're going to talk about too. It's an inspirational look at life's lessons that she learned while riding across the United States on the tandem bicycle. In April, her first children's book is going to be coming out, Little Lola Little Lola and Her Big Dream is going to be launching. With her 3,000-plus mile adventure across the United States as a backdrop, join Terri Brown and I as we discuss some little rules for a better life. I'm talking today with Terri Brown. Terri, welcome to Toward a Better Life, and how are you doing, and where are you located?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you for having me on today. I am on the coast of North Carolina, a little town called Calabash. Anyone who's heard of Myrtle Beach, if you just head a little bit north, cross over into North Carolina, you hit Calabash, and that's where I'm located.
So I looked at a little something that you've got there, which sounds very, very interesting. I should mention, everyone, Terri is an author, and she has her own podcast. And one of the things that I looked at is a title of one of her books. I'm not sure if it's recent or not, but it's called Green Mountain Gap, or I should say Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, which is very, very close, based to where we're nearby in Burnsville, North Carolina. So let's kind of put that one on the side just a little bit, because Terri, you have quite a background that I think might interest some of the folks that are listening today. One of the minor little things, I say tongue in cheek, is you did a short little bike ride a while back. And why don't you start off with that? Tell us a little bit about your background and and then tell us about your bike ride.
Yeah, so my background, believe it or not, the bike ride and my background really tie into one another because I didn't really have a background before the bike ride.
Hmm.
I'm a mom. I have 4 children. I homeschooled. I did a little bit of writing, but mostly it was nonfiction for small businesses. So it was things they needed for the internet, things that they needed to pass out maybe to customers, like little booklets, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted very much to be a novelist, but I was terrified to even consider it. I was living in an emotionally abusive relationship. And when you are in a place like that, you don't want to put all your creativity out to the world, because if someone doesn't like it, I already had people that didn't like me. I didn't need more of that, right? And so I didn't feel like I had a very safe space. And I got out of that relationship in 2017, and it was never getting married again. I got married again, just, a spoiler alert, but I was never doing that again. I was kind of done with that whole thing. But I met a guy named Bruce who became my husband, and he said to me, "I've always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle." Well, what's crazy is that I had been thinking to myself that I wanted to do some big, bold adventure because I felt like I needed to prove to the world that I still had value. Now, it
Mm.
turns out that the world did not think anything, but I did. But, I learned that along the way as well. And so I just looked at him and I said, "Is this going to be something you talk about until the day you die, or are you going to do it?" He
Mm.
said, "No, I want to do it." And I said, "Count me in." Well, the crazy thing is I hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years.
So
So
just leap
this,
right out there.
yeah, so this was well outside of my comfort zone. And we spent the next year and a half training, practicing, going on rides, learning to ride. We found very quickly that I was never, ever going to be as good as he was, because he's been riding consistently from the time he was 12, and he did cycle racing and triathlons and all of this, and not me. So we decided to do this crazy ride on a tandem bicycle, which is a bicycle built for two. And the reason for doing this is he wouldn't be able to go faster than me, and I wouldn't be able to go slower than him. We would have to work together to make this whole thing work. So we practiced and we trained, and we got all the equipment and all the things that needed to happen, and COVID hit. And we were supposed to leave in May of 2020, and we assumed that we were not going to be able to go. And it was so sad and felt so horrible that here we had trained so hard and wanted to do this big event that we decided that if we could get started by the middle of July, we would still be able to make it before it got too cold to be riding.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually left the very end of June. So we started in Astoria, Oregon, and we rode 3,102 miles until we got to Washington, D.C. And how this dovetails into who I am now is, as we were finishing up that very last day, it really hit me. I just rode 3,102 miles across the United States. I can do anything. It's not a matter of can I do it, but what do I want to do? And I thought, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first book came out.
There you go. It's perfect. And now you have a podcast for writers. And
yes, I have a podcast. I have 3 novels. I have a inspirational memoir. I have a children's picture book. I have another novel coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're not busy at all.
No, never. No.
Of course, what we like to do here is we talk about our thoughts of self-care, self-development, things like that. And the reason I wanted you to share what you did just now is to help everyone to understand, have that goal in mind. And like you just said a few minutes ago, don't let it haunt you the rest of your life. And I'll steal a line from somebody. Just do it.
Just do it. No, really. And for me, this was really big. This was not Terry doing Terry. I'm a desk jockey. When I love being outdoors, but things like casually walking along the beach collecting shells. I am not an adventure kind of person. But no, there was something really driving me that wanted to do something big and bold, something that everyone would say, oh, you can't do that. And I definitely had people tell me, oh, you'll never make that. In fact, my brother said to me, you can't walk and chew gum. There's no way you're going to make this across the United States. And when we were done with that conversation, I looked at Bruce and I said, I don't care if you tie me to the bicycle. I am making it, And so sometimes I think it's actually helpful to have people who tell you can't. It gives you a little bit more
boost.
I'm a little bit feisty. I don't like people telling me what to do. And especially after getting out of that bad relationship, it was like, oh, people aren't going to tell me what to do anymore. I'm going to decide for myself. And yeah, I was going to make it. And we did. And it wasn't easy. And I kept a blog the whole way across. So every day I would write, and I was very, very honest because I read blogs before we went that were not very honest. And, they always talked about standing on the hill, completed the day. And it was like, yeah, but what about all the stuff until you got to that point?
Yeah.
And so I was really honest. And so when you read that blog, you'll see me standing on the side of the road crying. You'll see me wanting to quit. You'll see days that were amazing, that it was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. There were days that were so boring that I thought, if I see one more day of Montana, I'm going to scream. So it's just real honest in my blog. And it was hard. This was not an easy endeavor. This was not just get up one day, go ride 3,102 miles and, call it a day. It was a tough thing for me to do. And by the end of it, I had no choice but to be different. Like I don't think it changed me as much as it helped me discover myself again. The world sometimes dumps crap on you and you have trouble figuring out who you are. Yeah. But this ride kind of cleared that away for me. And it was like, oh, there's the feisty girl. There she is. So.
Yeah, discover yourself and find out who you are, and
Yeah,
that's almost become a mantra in some regard with past episodes because the subject comes up often of do you know who you are, and it's not a matter of, well, I'm Kevin Pennell. I live in Arizona. I live in the Carolinas. I have been in Arizona.
it's Kevin, and he has
um,
no idea where he lives.
that's it. But it's an amazing process when we think about it. But I appreciate what you're saying with the thing of, with the blogs of somebody standing on top of the mountain and saying, "Oh, look, here we are,
Right,
yay!" And that's
right,
great. And I'm not discounting that, but it's so important to understand the power in the journey itself.
right.
You
And
know,
the journey is, I mean, each and every day taught me something.
mm,
And if I had just been transported across the United States, you don't learn those things. And if it
mm,
had been easy, I wouldn't have learned those things. It took struggle, and it took wanting to quit, and it took crying, and it took, exhaustion and heat and all of those other things for me to say, oh yeah, there I am. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm made of now.
yep, it's a life-changing opportunity,
It
is what
is.
was before you. It just came to my brain that there was a gentleman I had on, it's a while ago. It's well over a year, maybe even 2 years ago on the program. And he did an adventure from Ireland to Australia on a motorcycle.
I'm trying to see how that works.
At some point, there's a boat.
I was going to say there's got to be, because I don't know too many motorcycles that can handle the ocean, but
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm going to see if I can do a synopsis of it really quick to put it into perspective. He began this journey first off when he was in his 20s. And believe it or not, I don't know, I would have to listen to the podcast myself again, but he made it to somewhere near the Middle East and then something switched. And he ended up, believe it or not, in Hickory, North Carolina with this same motorcycle. He was there for like a year and a half or 2 years and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And he went back to his home in Ireland. And I guess they were at a pub a few years ago, and they were just talking about stuff. And he was talking to this guy, and the guy was talking to him. And he says, "Well, you know what? What? Why don't you just do it? Just do it again." And he says, "Are you out of your mind?" He says, so what? Well, wait a minute. Yeah, we could do that. We could. And here's the funny thing, Terry, is believe it or not, he had the same Ducati sport bike. The thing was over 25 years old, and he took that motorcycle, and the man is now in his 60s, and he decides, I'm going to do it. And he did it.
Right, right.
So, it's you are restricted by your own restrictions, I'm going to say,
No,
because
it's true. I mean, it's
yeah.
your mindset. It's you saying whether you can or whether you can't.
Hmm.
It's funny. I learned something about myself. I have big feelings, very large feelings. I laugh really loud. I cry really loud. I'm not an even keeled kind of person. I have, all the peaks and valleys. And so when something is hard, or it's been a bad day, or something like drastically changes, and now we're having to pivot, I don't handle it well initially. My initial response is to like fall apart and cry, and and it used to just frustrate me that that's the way I was. And I've learned to really accept just the way I am. I have
Hmm.
to get rid of all of that big emotion. I have to let it out, experience it, and then I can say, all right, logically, what do we need to do? But
Hmm.
I can't be in that logical place with all of that immense emotion that I have. So I've now realized this is my process. And my process, it's okay. It's okay to have a good cry first. It's okay to, throw my hands into the air and rail at the universe. It's fine, because eventually I'm going to say what needs to be done.
Yeah. Now that you're
So,
done, what needs to be done?
yes, Yeah. The first time this happened on the ride. So my husband and I had been married just over a year at that point. And it's probably day 3 or 4. It was hot. It was a hard day. It was a really hard day. And we're standing on the side of the road, and I just started to sob.
Hmm.
And he didn't know what to do. He's kind of like back and forth on his feet, like, and then he tried to hug me, and that was the wrong thing. Don't touch me, and I was just, and I know that his mind was like, well, we're done. This is it. We're not going any further than this. And I got it out of my system, and I wiped my eyes and said, okay, let's get on the bike. And he looked at me, he was incredulous. And I said, well, we can't stay here. This isn't, we have 12 miles to go before we're ready to get to our stop for the night. We have to get on the bike to do it. And so he soon learned that this was also my process. So I would cry, and he would just kind of stand there and wait, because he knew eventually I was going to get it together. And every now and then, one time he said something funny, because I said, I can't go any further. He said, I know. And I would call an Uber for you if I could, and it was like, okay, let's get on the bike, because I knew that's what we needed to do. I just had to get all the feels out first.
Uh-huh. I have a question.
Yeah.
How far along were you in that trip when that happened?
The first time, 3 days.
So,
oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. And he was just like, oh, I'm sure he thought, well, this is it. We're done. Like,
Yeah.
we're never going to make it across the US if this is the way she is after 3 days.
Yeah.
But it's just who I am. I am emotional. I used to be called too emotional by people. And now
Hmm.
I make sure they don't use the word too. I am emotional.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. But I'm
Yeah.
not too emotional.
So this is a narrative when you think about it, about life in general and approaching change in life. And we have, I mean, you have what is it? Was it a minor in psychology?
Yeah,
Where you have these situations that approach us in life. And how often do we hear of stories where people start out and they quit? And they quit usually right around the time that if they'd gone a little further, everything
right,
would have been fine.
right,
And what you did is you put, I'm going to, no pun intended, but I'm going to put wheels to that and say that's what you did because you just got it out and you said, okay, I'm done with it for now. Let's move on.
right.
And the next question I've got is how long did it actually take you from the end of June to when to get to Washington?
It was like October 3rd or 4th.
Okay, so we've got 4 months, 4 to 5 months.
Three and a half, really, because
Three and a
all
half.
of July,
Okay.
August, September, and then, yeah, like 3.5.
Okay. So you've got about 1,000 miles a month, give or
Yeah,
take.
give or take.
So if we spread that out and we start to look at it as change, um, I have faced it with people that I've worked with in past situations of counseling and so forth, and they're ready to throw in the towel, and I just tell them, don't. There was a term that just came to mind. It's not, I'm not switching gears completely, but in treating the Lyme disease, for an example, there's a term that's called herxing. Are you familiar with it?
No, I've not heard that term.
Okay, so herxing is where everything gets really bad just before it gets good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's typical where you've got the herbs in your system and you're trying to work through it, and all those little spirochetes that are involved with a Lyme disease, they're doing their best to fight against this stuff that you're
Right.
putting in, and they basically shut your system down. And it's herxing to the point of saying, I can't do this. Sound
Right.
familiar?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's crazy is the book that I wrote, 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure, are life lessons I learned. And one of them is don't quit on a bad day.
Hmm.
That's one of my lessons, because that's the worst time to quit.
Yeah.
You'll always wonder, could I have done it if,
Hmm.
it's okay to quit. Sometimes quitting is the right thing, but do it because you made the decision that it's no longer serving you, instead of
Yeah. So what's the title again?
10 little rules for a double-butted adventure.
10 little rules for a double-butted adventure. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I we're gonna have to put that one in the show notes too. I can tell that right now
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It was
because
it it's a fun book. It's not the blow by blow, day by day. If people want that, you can go to my website. My blog is there. You can go look at that. But this is like the lessons I learned about life and living a more adventurous life, living a little more outside the box that we all put ourselves in.
Mhm.
The nice little calm, easy, what's going to happen today box, where you learn absolutely nothing and you grow absolutely none at all.
Yeah.
um, and it's a little scary to go outside of those walls that we've created for ourselves. And so these are little lessons, I think, that will help people if they're making that move. They're wanting to do something a little bit bold, and it doesn't have to be riding across the United States. It can be
Mm-mm.
something as simple as changing a job or getting into or out of a relationship or moving to a new city or taking up piano. I mean, like, whatever it is.
To and I'll plug myself to move toward a better life, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
because that's
Exactly.
that's the essence is what can I do to create a better life for myself?
Right.
I'm not happy with who I am, what I'm doing. Well, change it. Just change it. And the other thing that I try to share with people when we do things like this is baby steps. Baby steps are more important than big steps to me because every time you made that little circulation or circular movement with your feet on a tandem bicycle, you're moving a little further. You're moving a
Right.
little further, and you just keep
Right.
doing it.
So
Yeah.
it's really crazy. At the end of the ride, we're done,
Hmm.
right? We're sitting at his daughter's house. We're done. And in my mind, it's like, I know I did it. Like, I went all of those days. I have the blog. I remember all the things, but I couldn't put it all together because we did not ride 3,102 miles. We rode one day, and then we put that day away, and then we rode one day, and we put that day away, and we rode one day, and we put that day away. And by the end of it, we had ridden across the United States. And it was so hard to, at the end of it, go back and string them all together because I never thought of it as riding across the US. We were riding that day. However many miles that day had to be, that's what we were riding. And then you had to put that day away. That day doesn't do you any good anymore. Now we're on this next day. So it was kind of crazy. And that's how the book came around. Is I started reading my blog trying to get more of a sense of like a continuum. And as I was reading my blog, it was like, well, would you look at that lesson? Would you look at that lesson there? Look at those things that I'm learning. And that's where the book ended up coming from. So,
You just did the short narrative too on the gentleman that I just talked about with the motorcycle. I asked him, I said, you've got a 25-year-old motorcycle, and the chances are, is it going to break down between point A and point B? The chances are a really rousing yes. And he did. He had a couple of times he had to break down and stuff. And I said, well, how do you do that? I mean, you're out in the middle of frickin' nowhere and you're on this motorcycle, and how do you do that? And I love going on rides. We like going on rides. And he says, and when you go on those rides, it's like a day, right? And I go, yeah. And he says, that's how I did it, one day at a time. And you just
yeah,
said the same thing. How do you
it's
do it?
it's
One day at a
exactly
time.
it's there's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It is that concept completely, that people would say to us all the time, where are you headed? Because we looked like a parade. I mean, we have the tandem bicycle, we were pulling a trailer with gear in it. I mean, we were, like, here they come, we're obviously doing something. And Bruce would always say, we're headed to Washington, D.C., but not today.
Wow. There you go.
And that was really, that was it. And then on that last day, it was like, we're headed to Washington, D.C. today. Like, we're done. Like it was a very crazy feeling that last, yeah.
If you took one thing away from that trip, what would you take?
Oh, just one.
All right, I'll give you a couple.
No, I think one of the biggest things that I took away is I no longer like the idea of a bucket list.
Hmm.
I think bucket lists are a waste of time. I do not want to die with a list of things I wish I had done.
Hmm.
I would rather have one or two things I'm working toward.
Okay.
So I think what I kind of got from all of this, I mean, this was a big deal for my husband. He had wanted to do it for 40 years and
Hmm.
he finally got to do this big thing. And I think that it's better to say, this is this big thing that I want to do. What's a small step I can take today to move me toward that?
Hmm.
I would rather leave this world working on three or four things that I'm trying to achieve than to have a list of things I wish I had accomplished.
Okay. Yeah. That says so much. Just to take a couple of things and enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that I can't have wishes or dreams or anything like that, but don't be disappointed if you don't get to do some of those things.
right.
And instead,
Pick the ones that touch you the most, that I don't know, make you feel most alive. And then say, okay, what can I do today to move me toward that? When we decided we were riding across the United States on a tandem, it's not like the next day we flew out to Oregon. There
hmm
was a lot of things that had to be done. And, getting me used to a tandem bicycle, finding the right shorts, finding the right seat, finding the right shoes, you know, helping me learn how to whittle down my equipment to something that made sense because I wanted to take my entire house with me. All of those things that you have to learn before you can go do this thing. And so if you have something big enough to be on a bucket list, take it off the bucket list, break it down into little sound bites and say, okay, what can I do today?
yeah.
And even if it's something like, okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit of research and find out a little more about whatever. I mean, start moving in that direction.
So where did you fly from? Where were you living at the time? In North
So
Carolina?
we lived in North Carolina, so we flew everything out. We actually drove to up toward DC. He has a daughter that lives there, and since we knew we were going to end there, we left our truck there with her, and then went from DC to Oregon, and we started in Astoria, Oregon. So I don't really remember where we landed, but we then, took a bus and ended up in Astoria, and
So
yeah,
where was the bicycle? I'm
we
guessing you
flew
took it
it.
on the plane. Yeah.
No, we flew. No, we sent it. There's a place. I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it now, but it's like a UPS for bicycles,
Okay. All right.
and they this is what they specialize in. And so we had a special container and put the bike in it, and we shipped it to a bicycle shop in Astoria. So we had called them and let them know. And then when we got to Astoria, we went to the bicycle shop and had to reassemble the bicycle.
Okay. So and why? Why Oregon?
If you're going to ride across the United States, you definitely want to go from west to east because prevailing winds are west to east. And you don't want to be against the wind. We were against the wind for several days in Montana because the wind decided to go backward, but you want to do prevailing winds. Then when you're trying to look at like where do you go across? In the summertime, you don't want to be too far south. It's just too blasted hot.
That's right.
Okay. So now you're looking at, well, how far north do you want to go? Well, we're on a tandem bicycle. So we wanted to cross over the Rockies in the shortest possible gap there was. And we
Ah,
went over a place called Lola Pass. And despite the fact that it's the shortest in that, in that area, it wasn't short. It wasn't like it was it was pretty. And I live on the coast of North Carolina, where I live at a high point. My house is at 35 feet above sea level. Okay. So for me, you can imagine going up over this. It took us 3 days of riding to get to the top of this mountain.
Mm,
And and I could hardly breathe.
sure.
Like I was having problems getting oxygen. It was really tough. So the reason we picked what we picked is because most of the other places it was either too hot further south, or you had to go over too many mountain passes through the Rockies. Like there's
Okay.
something called the Northern Tier. And in
Hmm.
the first 5 days, you cross over 3 major mountain passes. Well, that's just not fun on a tandem. And I knew that if we started there, that by the end of that 5 days, I'd be done.
Yeah.
Like
I,
that was going to be, it was just too much.
yeah.
It was too much. Bruce probably could have handled it on a single bike alone because he is far more experienced. But I knew me. And it was like, we have to have some time before we get to the Rockies.
Wow. This is well, I'm having fun with this part of the podcast. Not that I won't have fun with the rest of the podcast, but this is great. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is
Yeah,
wonderful stuff, Terry, because it's again, it's a narrative on what we can do to create a better life for ourselves, and don't allow what we perceive as obstacles to stop us from doing what we want to do. Just
right.
just move forward.
Just keep moving forward. And if you can't move forward in the direct line that you thought you were going to move in,
Hmm.
then find an alternative.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't go straight. Can we go to the right? Can you go to the left? Can you go over it? Can you go under it? Can you like find a way? That's something that is not my natural state. I like a plan. I like a plan that stays the plan the whole way, you know. And riding on a bicycle across the United States, the plan did not stay the plan.
No, of
Every
course.
day things would change.
Hmm.
The weather changed, how we felt changed, the road conditions changed. It was, you would think you knew, you'd go to bed at night thinking you'd know what the next day was going to be like, and you'd wake up in the morning and everything had changed.
Mm.
And it bothered me at first. It was really hard for me. And Bruce kept saying, we still have the same plan, which is to get to Washington, D.C. It's just that the logistics have changed.
Mm. He had a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah. I wouldn't have wanted to do this trip with anyone else, I don't think. I think he's very level, he's very calm, he's everything I'm not. And it was nice to have someone who could say, okay, Terry, this isn't the disaster it feels like to you.
Yeah.
You know, this is the next thing that we can do. And it was like, oh, good. But I think he enjoyed having me along because I don't know that he would have noticed all the wildflowers. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, I
I'm
do.
that person. And so he got to experience things on the ride he wouldn't have seen himself. And
Hmm.
I got to experience the ride that I would have never figured out how to complete on my own because it would have felt way too large for me.
Hmm.
You know, the first time the bicycle broke down, I would have, you know, it would have been like, well, I guess that's the end of that.
And how many breakdowns did you have?
Oh, I don't even know. A
Wow,
lot. We
a
had
lot.
one day that taught me the rule: don't quit on a bad day. We had 3 flat tires.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, the rear tire went flat 3 different times. We were thankful it didn't go flat the fourth time. We didn't have another tube.
Oh wow.
You know, and so when we got to town, Bruce called the bicycle shop, and the guy said, yeah, I'm just about 4 miles up the road. And Bruce said, I don't have 4 miles in me. How much will you charge me to deliver it? And the guy said, oh, I passed by where you're staying on my way home. I'll just bring it.
Wow.
It was so nice, but we had to get new tubes. We had to get a new patch kit. We had to get, I mean, it was, yeah, it was crazy. So we had that. We had different things that would happen throughout where all of a sudden there was this one gear in there that just kept making this grindy, clunky noise, you know, and the first shop that we went to didn't have the part to fix it, but kind of rigged it so that it would be okay. Called the next shop that we would get to. They ordered the part. And when we got to that shop, they fixed it permanently. So, I mean, there were a lot of things that we had to do that were just, you know, you just kind of this is what we're going to do. Oh, we're going to spend the night here because our bicycle's no longer going forward. You know?
And I want to keep going forward, and it's not working that way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you had a thing that you would want to share with people in general, I mean, I talked about the one lesson and I appreciated so much, what you said about we hear so much about the bucket list and that kind of stuff. But if there was something else that you wanted to leave folks with what you were learning from this time period, and then I want to jump into your book in the little amount of time that we've got
Okay.
left.
Okay,
But
super.
I really want to do that. But at the same token, I want people to hear what is one of the other lessons? Let's try that. What's another lesson that you could leave our folks with on this journey?
One of the other lessons is, you know, I can do hard things.
Hmm.
Like, it was hard.
Hmm.
This was not an easy endeavor, but we're capable. We are capable. If you want to do it, you can do it. Now, if you don't want to do it, by golly, you can think of 1,000 reasons why you can't do it, and you will not achieve it. I had a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I could never ride across the United States." I mean, they themselves, "Oh, I could never ride across the United States on a tandem bicycle." And I said, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, it's not a matter of can you do it? It's do you want to?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the sun coming up this morning can stop you. I mean, if you don't want to do something, you don't want to do it. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I bet you could run a marathon." And I said, "You're right, I could. I have zero desire to do it, and I'll never do it, but I could." And I believe that if I wanted it, if it were something that really mattered to me, sure, I could.
Yep.
Why not? I wouldn't be the first 62-year-old woman to have not ever run and start running. I mean, I could do it.
Yep.
I don't want to, but so I think that's the other thing, is this idea that we can do hard things, that yeah, life can look difficult, but break it down, find a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're capable, more capable than you think you are.
It's attitude.
Yeah.
It has the completion attitude. It has the attitude of I'm not going to quit.
I'm
I'm going to
not going
keep
to
moving.
quit. And I've told, like I said, I've told people that sometimes quitting is the appropriate
Sure.
response.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any problem with, if you can logically say, this is no longer moving me forward. It's not moving me in the direction I want to go. It is not bringing me any kind of joy. It is not, there's nothing here. Then it is fine to say, I'm done with this.
And
I don't tell people don't quit, but I do tell people, like, don't quit on a bad day.
mm-hmm,
Don't give up the first time it's hard.
mm-hmm.
Like, but it is okay to say I'm done. It's a perfectly acceptable thing to realize that this is not what I thought it was going to be.
And don't beat yourself up about it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm learning. That's another thing I'm really learning about life in general, is just the ability to realize that I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, picking things that I think are going to be good for me, and then realizing, that really wasn't a good fit. And instead of picking myself, I just acknowledge that wasn't a very good fit and move on.
Yeah.
And in a tiny little way, I know people who pick up a book to read it and they insist on finishing it, even if they're not enjoying it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, why all you're saying is I picked incorrectly.
Yep.
Put the book down, find another one. There's a bazillion books out there. You don't have to read books that are no good. And it's not that it's no good, it's that it's no good for you. And it's okay to say, this book doesn't work for me.
That's magic. What you just said is not necessarily a bad book. It's just not
No.
meant for you to read.
Right.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And it's the same thing with anything in life. I mean,
Yes.
it could have been that along the trip, I realized this is no good for me. This isn't, thankfully I didn't, because I'm so glad that I made it across the United, but it would have been okay. It would have been all right for me to say, this is not, I chose wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't good for me. And I think it's perfectly acceptable to say that.
Oh. 10 little rules for a double-butted adventure. It sounds to me like it's also 10 little rules to make your life better.
Well, and what I love is at the end, I tell people these are my 10 rules.
Yeah.
This is what I learned. But at the
Hmm.
end of each chapter, I have questions to reflection questions, and I give you a little space to write your answers, and feel free to come up with your own 10 rules. Like maybe my rule doesn't work for you, or you already have that rule, but it reminded you of something more, or you need to refine it in a way that works better for you. So it's even a reflection to help you come up with your own rules that will help you live a more adventurous life.
I just had a podcast about this in the sense of it's okay. I've got a formula that will help you create a better life for yourself. And within that formula is this point, this point, this point, this point. Just go down the list. But you have the option to make your own formula. All I'm
Right,
going to do is say, do it. It goes back to
right,
that thing, doesn't it? If
right.
you want to do it, then do it. If you want to
Then do
do
it.
something, do it.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I'm only an expert in me.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that I learned while
Yeah.
on my journey. And I would love to hear other people who've read my book and then say, here's a rule I came up with,
Yeah.
or this rule of yours works for me. This one doesn't. Here's why. Instead, I'm going to use this rule. I mean, I think that's just, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
I always hate those books that make it sound like their way is the only way. I
Oh
come
yeah.
across I come across that in writing. Well, this is the way
Mhm.
you should write a novel. This is it. And it's like, except that's not the way I do it, and my novels are fine. So
Yeah.
you know,
My goodness. That was a fun hike down that rabbit hole, wasn't it?
it was. I love that rabbit hole though. That's a fun place for me to be.
How do we segue, Terry, to Daughters of Green Mountain Gap? I mean,
Well,
you've
I
got quite an adventure here that you've
yeah,
had. So,
yeah.
is Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, is that an adventure?
So yeah, I mean, in many ways, it was I got my first book out. That was Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, and then my second book out was An Enemy Like Me. The third book is Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, and it came out in January of 24. And I had to write it very differently. Um, Unfortunately, in June of 22, my husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is an
Hmm.
incurable brain cancer,
Hmm.
and I became a full-time caregiver. And it, in the beginning, was rather easy. And with cancer diagnosis, as things, they inevitably go south, and then you learn a new normal. I had to learn to write in little small pieces of time, where I
Hmm.
used to write like I would go away for 2 weeks. I would say, okay, I'm going on a writer's retreat. I'll be back in 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, I'd have a first draft,
Yep.
because all I would do is write. Well, I couldn't do that. And so this adventure was, how do I write in small snippets of time?
Hmm.
How do I take this hour, this 15 minutes, this evening, and create? And then when it was done, I was really worried. Like, is it even going to make sense? Because I've always written very quickly from start to finish. And I'm not saying it's good. That first draft is always very messy, but it's all there, right?
Yeah.
But it's all there.
Yep.
And when you're writing in little snippets, I thought, what if I mean, this is going to be terrible. And I read it and it was like, wow, like it held together. There are still things that need fixing, but all first drafts, that's the true statement. So there was that. I think the other thing is that Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, it's my third novel, but it is the first one that people have really started paying attention to.
Hmm.
It is starting to sell a little. It has quite a few Amazon reviews. It's was just picked by North Carolina Humanities as one of their NC Reads books. So they do an online book club, pick 5 books a year, and Daughters of Green Mountain Gap was just chosen for that. So it's kind of like an adventure in terms of, I'm not saying I'm making it big, but I'm kind of coming out of obscurity. I was an absolutely unknown quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have 1,200 people that follow me on my newsletter. I'm starting to come into my own. And Daughters of Green Mountain Gap has helped me do that.
What prompted the book itself?
I had a wart. It's a crazy story. So I had a wart. I was at my primary care doctor for just a regular checkup. And I said, hey, I've got this wart on my thumb. Can you burn it off for me? Oh no, it's on your hand. We'll have to send you to a specialist. Well, I, rolled my eyes, went to CVS, got a patch, and that was kind of the end of that. Well, a couple weeks later, I was talking to my brother on the phone and complaining about my primary care, and that, it used to be that you'd go to primary care and they'd do everything but, heart surgery. And now they do nothing.
Yeah.
And I told him about my wart, and he said, well, why didn't you get someone to talk it off? I said, what are you talking about? He says, yeah, I got a buddy that talks off warts. Well, I'm a gullible person, very gullible. And my family often tells me stories that I fall for. And then I hear about it for the next 72 Christmases, right? Oh, remember that time that Terri? So I just kind of let it go. We get off the phone, but I'm also a research junkie. And I thought, well, I've got to look this up. I've got to know if he was pulling my leg. Well, there were people who talk off warts. They talk, or they buy them, or they bury things, or, so I'm looking all that up. The next thing you know, I'm finding people who can blow in your mouth and get rid of thrush.
Uh-huh.
I learned of women who could talk to a breech baby in the womb and get it to flip.
Yep.
And before you know it, I was in the mountains of North Carolina with granny women. And Maggie, who's the main character, literally was born in my head and whispered, I have a story to tell.
Wow.
And it was like, okie dokie, here we go. So it all started with a wart, which is totally nuts, but it just got me into a research is what happened.
So I read a little bit on the book, and that was the other piece, that it was very intriguing to me, simply because of my interest in natural healing, the herbal stuff and things like that. And these are things that have been around thousands of years. And a lot of times it's just discounted as, oh, that's just a bunch of poppycock, or that's an old wives' tale, or, make your list. They're all there. And yet, if it's not true, then why is it that a lot of people did it?
Well, one of the things that we do as a human race is something new and shiny comes along and we throw the old thing away. Just throw it away as though it was useless. And so we're constantly throwing the baby out with the bathwater, constantly. And I don't want to go back to a day where we did bloodletting for diabetes. Modern medicine definitely has made things better.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you go into a doctor now and they follow a protocol. They don't care who you are. They don't care what you've tried before. They have a protocol they have to follow. And I hate that. And the granny women didn't. They looked at you as a person, as a human, as they would look at the color of your skin and your tongue and your fingernails and all of these things, and make a decision based on their vast knowledge of all these herbs. I would love to see medicine come to a point where we're marrying those two things, where we have this wide array of very modern things that are wonderful. Thank goodness we have them. I mean, I can't imagine having diabetes and not having insulin. I mean, this is good. On the other hand, wouldn't it be wonderful if you had a doctor who actually looked you in the eyes and listened to you when you said, that medicine you gave me makes me feel horrible?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, well, you'll get used to it. In other words, you'll get used to feeling horrible. A granny woman would have said, oh, okay, well, then let's try.
Yeah.
I think we need that. As I was going through and learning about granny women and what they can do, I just found it fascinating, because not only do they do that, really get to know who they're dealing with, but they have something. I called it mountain magic. I don't even know how else to explain it,
That's perfect.
but it's an ability. They believe they can heal.
Right.
They believe it in their soul.
Mm-hmm.
And the people coming to them believe it. And that belief changes how we heal.
Right.
I mean, we know this is a fact because they've done studies, for instance, where people who are more optimistic heal from surgery faster than people who are pessimistic. Well, there's zero reason for that in terms of science, but there's something in our brains, and it's granny women tapped into that. And I find that to be absolutely fascinating.
And it's true. It's
Yeah.
so true that we really can heal ourselves. I have often called myself, and even in workshops that I teach with people, I said, I want you to think of yourselves as a healing facilitator. I'm not a healer. I'm just a healing facilitator. I'm going to be the guy with the flashlight. I'm going to show you how to walk. And I'm going to show you
Yeah.
where to walk. It's up to you to walk. I can't do it
Right.
for you,
Right.
but you have to believe that you're going to feel better. And there are times where I've worked with people and I'm doing work with them, and it might be through hypnotherapy, it might be just a deep meditation while I'm working with them. And I will say they've got a pain in their back. I'll say, okay, so where is it? Well, it's just about in the middle of my back around, and I'm going to say, so is it right here? And I'll touch it. And it's, oh yeah. So I'm going to say, for the sake of it, it's like T8, thoracic 8,
Uh-huh.
in your vertebra.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so am I on the spot? They said, oh yeah, you're on the spot. I said, okay, I want you to visualize yourself inside of your body, going to that spot and holding it and giving it love. And
Yeah.
they, and then they get done. And I said, how did you
How
do
do you
that? I said,
feel?
I didn't do it. You
I didn't
did.
do it. Right. So I believe this is, the world according to Terry. I believe that our bodies are meant to be healthy.
Yep.
Like, that's their natural state, is
Hmm.
health.
Hmm.
And that they work very hard to maintain this healthy state. And that granny women have the ability to somehow, I don't know, like, connect with you in a way that allows your body to say, oh, yes, healthy is what we're going for.
Hmm.
you know and that doesn't mean that a granny woman can heal everybody. I mean, there
No.
are diseases that take over. My husband had glioblastoma. You don't get to survive that. That's it's beyond. It's I think it's even beyond a lot of times what your body can do now. It's kind of out of anybody's hands. But they have this ability. I can't even explain it with words. It's just this ability to.
It's magic.
It is. It's mountain magic. It's what I called it. And then the other thing that I did was I also looked into the Cherokee healing practices
Hmm.
and had Maggie befriend a Cherokee and learn some of their healing practices. And I found some of the things that they did and believed and how they lived their lives to be very fascinating, like in terms of the balance.
Yeah.
That there's balance in everything, and that even how they would pick their plants to dry their herbs for their medicine. They didn't go in and pick everything. They would pick every third plant
Yeah.
and leave two
Yep.
to keep propagating so that the next time they needed it, instead of like, let's just wipe out this hole and then we'll have to go find another area next time.
Well,
It was.
yeah, that's the mindset. Take it all.
Yes.
No, you're gonna
No,
take
you
what you need, and then
take what you
there's
need. And
there's the principle, and it might be in your book, but there's a principle we used to talk about in herbalism, and that is that you leave the parents and you take the children,
Yeah.
and you also talk to the plants,
Yeah.
and you go out and say you're meeting with somebody and they have a particular ailment, and you say, okay, we're going to work on this together. I just want you to go home now and just let me work on this. And you go out into the woods and you have a little talk, and you say, and you put it in your mindset, your intuition, your intent is, I want to find a plant. I want a plant to find me that is going to help this person with this need, and then wait. And it's amazing what can take
Yeah.
place. So
So,
I have a,
so
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
before we go on with that part, I have a quick question that just will not
Yeah.
leave me alone. Is this contemporary? Is this a contemporary book, Daughters of Green
No,
Mountain, or is it just
1890s. It's set
okay?
in the 1890s. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do tell people, like, if you want to get, I've had people say to me, "Oh, after reading your book, I want to get into herbal stuff." And it's like, great, but don't use my book. Like, I'm not an herbalist. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I, what I learned was through just research. By all means, there are great books for
Hmm.
you if that's where you want to go. So don't, everybody who's listening, do not use this book as, at the time in the 1890s, they were using things that we don't use now because we've learned that they can kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certain things that we wouldn't do anymore. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Or if you, I've often shared with folks too, when you start working with herbs, is you should understand, just like you were just saying, some of these herbs, and they talk about them being toxic. Well, they're toxic at a level,
At
and
levels. And you have to know how much is okay.
that's
I
right.
think the other thing that I found absolutely fascinating was that a plant, its leaves might, or berries might be deadly,
Hmm.
but the leaves aren't, or the
That's right.
roots aren't,
Hmm.
or what you would use the root for isn't the same thing that you would use the leaves for, or like it's, and that the plants, depending on when you pick them, will
Yeah.
have different properties, and that some you would only pick in the winter and some you would pick in the summer and some you try to pick when the sap's going up or going back down or whatever it is, that there's all of these things that you have to understand. So it's not a matter of head out into the woods, grab up a couple of plants and chew them. There's a lot more to it, and I found that to be very fascinating as well.
So what is a short synopsis of the book Daughters of Green Mountain Gap? Because it's
So
set in the
yes,
1890s.
set in the 1890s. Maggie is a granny woman. Her daughter also decides that she wants to be a healer, but does not like the granny woman medicine. She has learned of a more modern technique. She's really into Florence Nightingale and that idea. She ends up going to school and becoming a modern day nurse, so modern in the 1890s, and tries to bring that modern medicine back to her community. And it sets up a conflict between mother and daughter. The granddaughter also believes she should be a healer. She sees the good in what her mother does. She sees the good in what her granny does and doesn't really know which way to turn.
Wow.
So
Okay. Got me. I know in the next book I'm going to get. I'm a
fantastic.
I'm a bookaholic. What can I
Yeah, well,
say?
so am I. So one of the reasons I love my podcast is because authors then send me a digital copy of their book for me to read before we have the podcast. So in addition to meeting fun authors and getting to talk about books, I also feed my book addiction, which is
There you go.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm intrigued enough. I want to hear some of this book. We want to hear some of this book. Have you got something you could share with us?
Sure, I'll share with you part of the prologue.
Okay.
During the daylight hours, she kept herself busy cooking, cleaning, feeding the animals, and chopping firewood. She had even taken to going far up the side of the mountain to hunt for large hardwood limbs to drag back to the homestead, anything to make her tired enough to sleep. But when the night came, she would lie awake, visions passing before her eyes like ghosts. Esther holding baby Malcolm, her beloved Henry with his shirt tied around his waist as he drove in the nails that built their first home, the beautiful, silent face of her stillborn son. Then would come her daughter, jabbing her finger, flecks of spittle flying from her mouth as she would scream, "You, mother, you killed him." Sleeping, when she finally succumbed, only led to dreams. Esther begging, "No, please, Maggie, don't do this. I don't want to die." And then she'd wake in a sweat. Maggie pulled the door shut to the storeroom with her medicines, knowing she would never practice healing again. Instead, she carved 2 more notches on her walking stick. She rubbed her thumb across all 17 indentations, remembering in vivid detail her role in each death. The number was not insignificant. Though her Italian heritage was slim, she remembered the warning. 17 is the number of death. Don't write it down, Maggie. Don't even think it. If and you do, you're saying your life is over. Maggie never really believed it until now. Now 17 people declared in her dreams, "I'm dead. My life is over." 17 deaths, she realized, were a direct result of her inadequacies and incompetence. No, she would never again be the granny woman. In fact, she should have never done so to begin with. Her daughter, Carrie Ann, had been right all along.
Oh, man. And the story is about Maggie.
Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
tell me it changed.
So that's kind of a flash forward.
Yep.
Then we flash back. And then we flash back some more. And then we go. So I tend not to write in a straight line.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of in our head, a lot of remembering, a lot of going back. So
Well, life is not a straight line. Life is not
exactly.
linear. Life is circular. Life
Yeah.
moves.
It moves. Yeah, it's more spiral, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. And hopefully not out of control.
Right.
So what does this has been wonderful, Terry. This has been truly delightful. I hope we can do it again
I've had a
sometime. We
wonderful
have another
time.
book. Yeah. So what does Terry do to create a better life for herself besides riding 3,102 miles across the United States?
I think what I do is mostly I try to give myself grace. And I realize that I'm going to make mistakes and that it's okay. And that it doesn't have to define me, that my mistakes don't have to define me. And so if I've made a mistake, own up to it, move on. Look at it, recognize it for what it is, put it down, and just move on. It doesn't do you any good to hang on to them and to let them determine what your next step is.
Okay. That's the best thing to do, for sure. Are there any other thoughts or insights that you'd like to give to our listeners? Certainly your website. How do people get in touch with you? And what is the title of your podcast? And let's kind of go with that.
All right. So the best place to reach out to me is my website, which is my name, TerriMBrown.com, and that's Terry with 1 R. There you will find everything. So if you like to follow people on social media, all my social media icons, all of my books are there. My podcast, which is online for authors, is there. You can, all the platforms wherever you want to listen. I have a newsletter that you're welcome to sign up for. I read a lot, and at least one newsletter a month. I put reviews out of books that I've read, so you can kind of get an idea of maybe what you want to read next. And I even just have a contact me page. So if you're just curious and have a question or two and just want to reach out, I always get back to people.
Okay. And I think one of the things that I remember seeing in the website, and you may have already alluded to it, is that if you are somebody who enjoys writing, with the order of bards, ovates, and druids, remembering that a bard is usually they're a writer. But if you are somebody who really wants to get into writing, reach out to Terry. I'm going to tell you that
absolutely.
Right out. Yeah.
So absolutely, I love mentoring people. I love building community with other writers. So if you're a writer and you just want another friend, someone else to have in your back pocket so that we can chat about things, definitely reach out.
Okay, good. Thanks again, Terry. This has been a delightful opportunity, and thanks so much for sharing your story and your insights on Toward a Better Life.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks to Terri Brown for sharing her adventures and gleaning some helpful guidelines for creating our own rules for a better life. You may order her books, learn more about Terri from her website, TerriMBrown.com. That's TERIM Brown.com. And there's a link in the show notes, as always. And as always, a very special thanks to you, dear listener, for tuning into the program. Remember, if you're seeking insights and advice on how to create that better life for yourself, if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, experience hypnotherapy, distant shamanic work, Reiki, just contact me through my website, towardabetterlife.com, or email me at kevin@towardabetterlife.com for your free discovery call. As I've mentioned before, in that discovery call, we discuss your goals, set some plans for achieving those goals, and move toward your journey toward your own better life. You can also visit my website, as I mentioned, towardabetterlife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and some of the upcoming events that are coming along. Please do subscribe to the program through your favorite podcast platform and leave your review on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, whatever podcast platform you might be using. It helps spread the word about the program and, it creates a better life for all of us in the long run. Always remember, if you'd like to share your story, your music, prose, or if you want to be a guest on the show, just send the information to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Until next week, enjoy your magical journey toward a better life.